Hello again. You've arrived on site too. We now return to local news with Sonia.
Gardening gurus who have transformed patches of earth into floral explosions of colour are being sought for the annual Enfield in Bloom competition. This year's judging will take place between June the 22nd and July the 3rd, with the awards on offer in categories including Best Front Garden, Best Residential Street, Best Public House, Best Innovative Growing Space, including allotments, and Best School Grounds. The competition is run by volunteers and funded by sponsorships. The deadline for entries is June the 8th. Dennis Lushy, chairman of Enfield in Bloom, said, "With the new category of innovative growing space in the competition, it's a real chance for allotment holders and other community groups who run Grow Your Own schemes to have a chance of winning an award. There is plenty of scope in this year's competition for everyone to show off their skills and work with neighbours and friends to enter some of the community categories, so I'd urge residents to get involved." Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Environment, Daniel Anderson, added, "Every year the quality of the entries to Enfield in Bloom continues to amaze us, and we hope people do themselves proud again in 2015. We are one of the greenest boroughs in London, and the people living here have a real affinity with their gardens and a huge amount of talent for growing superb floral displays." Entry forms are available at Enfield Civic Centre in Silver Street, Enfield Town, from libraries and Clockhurst Nursery in Forty Hill, Enfield, and at www.enfieldinbloom.org.uk.
The wild moors and sweeping summits of Dartmoor can be a daunting sight, even on the finest of spring days, seen from within the warm, dry comfort of a car. However, crossing the national park by bike, with rain and hail lashing down and angry winds threatening to send anything as pathetically flimsy as a bicycle careering over the edge of a peak, meant that the beauty of the scene was somewhat lost on me. Coming on day 2 of a 4-day adventure over the hills, so many hills, of southwest England, Dartmoor Day was one of the defining moments of the charity bike ride to raise money to help Genesis Research Trust fund research into the causes of miscarriage. In January, I signed up to cycle the final stage of Fern Britain's Challenge 5, during which she and a group of brave, tough and all-round impressive women would ride all the way from John O'Groats in Scotland to Land's End in Cornwall. Despite the fact that I had the far easier task of having to cycle only 228 miles over 4 days, the seemingly never-ending hills of Somerset, Devon and Cornwall tested every ounce of hard-won thigh strength built up over months of cycling over the hills of North London. However, I now realise that even Alexandra Palace is not a real hill, and have come to the conclusion that anything that takes less than 10 minutes to cycle to the top of is now officially just a glorified ramp. But of course it was called Challenge for a reason, and I hardly think that the many, many generous people who donated to the cause would have been quite as impressed with a leisurely sunny ride across the flat plains of Norfolk, which, to be honest, sounds more like a nice holiday than a battle to raise money for vital research into a heartbreaking condition. Fertility and women's health expert Lord Robert Winston is the chairman of the charity, and on the final night, after the hills of Cornwall had been conquered and the women who had cycled all the way from the most northerly spot in the UK packed away their cycling shoes for the last time, he explained exactly what our efforts would be funding. He revealed that despite the high rate of miscarriage among women, very little is known about why some pregnancies end in tragedy. With old wives' tales still prevailing about the potential causes of miscarriages, He told the riders that the £118,000 raised by Fern and the rest of us would go towards funding research into the various reasons some pregnancies end, such as chromosomal or genetic problems with the fetus, to a woman's body rejecting foreign proteins. With 4 punctures to my name in the space of 4 days, a nicely scabbed-over welt on my arm after I fell off my bike before I had learned the art of changing gears going downhill, and oddly positioned sunburn lines from when the sun did eventually make an appearance, Lord Winston's words made me realise that my battle scars are all part of a long-running war to relieve suffering for women and their families everywhere. If a little blood, sweat and tears can play even a small part in finding out why some women suffer multiple miscarriages, then it's a small price to pay, isn't it?
Absolutely. Businesses, hospitals and schools came together to find out how to save energy. Held at the Dugdale Centre earlier in the month, the day was organised by Enfield Borough Council as part of the Retrofit London project, which aims to support small and medium-sized businesses. Speakers told delegates about the help they could offer to develop and fund energy-saving projects in their workplaces. Councillor Alan Sitkin, Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Economic Regeneration and Business Development, said, "This event was absolutely key in not only pushing the growth and importance of low-carbon developments, but allowing companies and providers to network. Some of the business opportunities created from this event will produce new, permanent jobs and promote inward investment to our borough. I look forward to exploring some of the projects." The Retrofit London project is one of 50 projects in the Enfield 2020 Sustainability Programme, working to make the borough a better place to live, work and visit by supporting jobs and businesses.
Young footballers celebrated the opening of a new £264,000 play area at their Edmonton school with charity matches to support a school in Sierra Leone. Children from Hounsfield Primary in Ripon Road hosted players from neighbouring schools Churchfield in Latimer Road and St Edmunds in Hertford Road at the opening party. Parents and teachers then played the contractors from Reims on the all-weather multi-use games area. The matches raised money to help build a poultry farm at a school in Sierra Leone in West Africa, which the pupils support. The new play area was funded with £234,000 from Enfield Council and £30,000 from the school. It will be used for a range of sports, including rugby, football, table tennis, athletics and netball, and completes an extension programme at the school, including 6 new classrooms, a large hall, and other rooms for use by groups. Head teacher Kate Holland said, "It is a vital asset for our children where they can exercise, develop a keen interest in sport, get plenty of fresh air and learn something about teamwork." The school is planning to use the pitch for outdoor events and tournaments, as well as community and charity events.
Hundreds of people donned their dancing shoes to take part in this year's Enfield Night Hike for charity. The borough's streets filled with people wearing head boppers and neon tutus in line with this year's disco party theme as hikers boogied their way around the 15-kilometre course. With the action kicking off at 8 p.m. on Friday, the skies turned dark as more than 400 hikers completed the challenge in aid of charities Nightingale Cancer Support Centre and Barnet-based Noah's Ark Children's Hospice. Lisa Barker, fundraising manager at the Nightingale Cancer Support Centre in Lancaster Road, Enfield, said a brilliant atmosphere had continued through the night. The sight of 400 people setting off down the road in their outfits was really emotional, and the atmosphere was absolutely lovely, she said. A lot of men took part this year, and families too, including youngsters. Lisa expects to top £15,000 when all sponsorship money has been collected. Members of Edmonton Cycling Club volunteered to cycle the route, checking hikers' well-being, and the Capel Players singing group provided entertainment at the 6-kilometre mark. Bakery chain Greg's donated 400 cakes.
Climbing Britain's highest mountain will be just the start when a team of electricians raises money for a hospice. 8 people from Thornton Electrical in Dendridge Close, Enfield, will take on Ben Nevis, as well as a 25-mile cycle ride through the Highlands before canoeing 3 kilometres on Loch Lochy in June 20th. The Mammoth Challenge will end with a 10-mile cycle ride back to the finish line as they bid to raise money for North London Hospice, based in Enfield and Barnet. Stephen Stanier, director of Thornton Electrical, said, "We enjoy new challenges, and as we completed the London to Paris bike ride last year for the North London Hospice, we thought we could incorporate cycling, which is our first passion, with walking and canoeing to really test ourselves. We have most of our staff competing in this challenge, so you could call this a team-building exercise too. We have cycled in Cambridgeshire and Potter's Bar to work on distance and hills. We have also walked up Mount Snowdon to acclimatise ourselves to the interchangeable weather conditions. The mountainous terrain on Snowdon can become challenging with steep gradients really working our leg muscles. We know it will be tough, but we are really excited about this challenge." Sonia.
A mother of 2 from Enfield will plunge to earth from the sky this weekend to raise money for a charity that offered amazing care to 2 of her friends. Julie Carter, 46, of Riversfield Road, is taking part in a tandem skydive in Cambridgeshire on Sunday in support of North London Hospice. She decided to take on the challenge as a gesture of thanks to the hospice team after they cared for 2 of her friends during battles with cancer last year. Julie, a council officer, said, "North London Hospice cared for my friends in their final months. The support given to them and their families by staff was amazing. Knowing that the hospice is run on donations, I try and support any fundraising events I can. Last year, I completed a fundraising walk with a friend, and so I've taken it up a notch this year. My stomach churns every time I think about jumping out of a plane, but it's been on my bucket list for years. Doing it for the hospice is the push I needed." Julie, who was presented with the Enfield Council Sport and Culture Leader of the Year award this year for her contribution to youth football, has already exceeded her target of £500, thanks to support from family, friends, and Whiteweb's Eagles FC, where she is club chairman. She is currently at £680. Julie's sons Ryan, 16, and 19-year-old Andrew will be supporting her on the day and say they are incredibly proud of their mum for taking on such a brave challenge. Andrew added, "I am very proud of Mum for taking to such heights. The money raised is going to a great cause that has helped people close to our hearts. To sponsor Julie, visit http://uk.virginmoneygiving.com/JulieCarter4.
A teenager from Edmonton has received an award in recognition of the courage he has shown battling a rare form of cancer. Theo Sergiu, 14, was diagnosed with retinoblastoma, a cancer which affects the retina in children, when he was just 2.5 months old. He underwent intensive chemotherapy treatment to save his life, but his sight could not be saved. The tumours had already destroyed his left eye, while severely limiting the sight in his right eye. Although the cancer went into remission, it returned when he was 18 months old. Once again, Theo underwent treatment and pulled through. He still suffers pain and discomfort as the tumours are unable to be removed, but tries to live life to the full. He enjoys karate, swimming, running and visually impaired cricket, and is passionate about music and drama as well. Now Theo, who lives in Devonia Gardens, has been named by a CHECT champion by the Childhood Eye Cancer Trust. Life is far from easy for Theo, but he's never let anything get in his way, said his mother Andrea. He believes nothing is out of reach, and as a result is an absolute inspiration to us all. He's a very sociable boy who knows how to make people laugh and brightens up the room. We are very proud of him. He's a lovely character who has changed me, my husband, and his 2 siblings. He is also living proof for other children and parents going through this that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You have to accept and appreciate what you have. Theo starred in a 2013 Emmy Award-winning film about his life, Same But Different, which was made by David Barnes and was also nominated for a BAFTA.
An Enfield man has been convicted of domestic violence and sentenced after police secured a victimless prosecution. Gokhan Ozyol, aged 34, of Slades Hill, was arrested by police in Cornwallis Road, Edmonton, in January, after reports of a woman being assaulted. They found the victim, aged in her 30s, dazed and bent over a car, with Ozyol holding her from behind. She had blood coming from her nose and mouth. While treating her for her injuries, one of the arresting officers, who speaks Turkish, heard Ozyol say, "Don't tell them what happened," and "Tell them you fell over because you are drunk." It was suspected that it was a case of domestic abuse, and dedicated officers began an investigation. But it soon became evident that the woman did not want to give a statement. Officers then began a victimless prosecution, which is initiated in cases where the victim is unwilling to cooperate to convict abusers. Ozyol was found guilty of assault by beating at Tottenham Magistrates Court in April, and last week appeared for sentencing at Highbury Magistrates Court, where he was given a community order. The order requires him to participate in a domestic abuse activity for 25 days to prevent further offending. Plus, he is required to carry out 50 hours unpaid work in the next 12 months. He was also ordered to pay costs of £620 and a victim surcharge of £60. Trainee Detective Constable Ian Cleghorn from Enfield's Community Safety Unit said, "The victim suffered at the hands of this man, and this outcome is testimony to our commitment to relentlessly pursue violent offenders responsible for abuse. We have a dedicated and experienced team of officers who offer the highest level of support, respect and confidence to victims of domestic abuse," he added. Sonia.
Columnist Bill Linton is writing about the Enfield Green Party. It was a bittersweet election night for Greens. A big increase in our vote in Enfield and a fourfold increase nationally. Caroline Lucas back with an emphatic majority, 4 second places and more than 100 deposits saved. But 5 more years of the Tories' ideological assault on the welfare state, the poor, the disabled and the disadvantaged, without even the slight drag of a protesting coalition partner. 5 more years to dismantle the NHS and sell it off to their cronies, piece by piece. A plus from the campaign is the starkness of the case and strength of the calls, both before and after the result, for an end to first past the post. 7 party leaders in a TV debate made an obvious nonsense of a system designed for 2-party government. Our 1.2 million votes and UKIP's 3.8 million for 1 seat each, while the SNP got 56 seats from 1.45 million votes, ran the point home. The case for a constitutional convention is now unanswerable. It should discuss not just the voting system and the relationships between the nations, regions and Westminster, but also the vexed question of party funding. Why should a few multimillionaires have such a disproportionate influence on a supposedly democratic process? Or union bosses, for that matter, though they, at least, are elected. On to 2016 and the joys of the modified DONT voting system. Don't ask. For the London Assembly elections. The system is far from perfect, but it's a great improvement on first past the post.
And this is the letter from Andrew Nicholas, chairman of the Enfield North Conservative Association. I must respond to the extraordinary letter from Rupert Curley, attempt to influence voting at polling station, from Opinion, May the 20th. First, the factual inaccuracies. We only ever had 1 teller at a time at any polling station. Any more would be a waste of resources. So if Mr. Curley encountered 2 people, one was undoubtedly from another party. Secondly, the majority of our tellers will forgive me if I say they are no longer in the first flush of youth and are far from intimidating. Thirdly, he completely misunderstands the purpose of telling. Far from being an attempt to determine voting intention, the idea is to keep track on those people who have voted so that they are not called on later in the day to remind them to vote. All parties operate this way, not just the Conservatives. No one has any way of knowing how individuals actually voted. If he is concerned about attempts to influence votes, I suggest he should be more concerned about the mock polling card featuring Joan Ryan that was carried into polling stations by Labour voters, contrary to election law, or the disgraceful letter written by the head teacher of Enfield Grammar School to parents just days before the election, which was clearly designed to influence voting intentions and which also broke election law.
The story of a woman who was seriously hurt in a car accident is being highlighted on a new website designed to give brain injury survivors a voice. Sam Jeevan from Enfield was a passenger in a car which was involved in an accident in 2006. She was not wearing a seatbelt when the car rolled over and she went out of the window. She suffered a brain injury and multiple fractures and faced a long, hard period of rehabilitation to rebuild her life. Now aged 46, she recalled, "I was taken to the Royal Free Hospital. I was in a coma for a couple of months. I had a bolt coming out of my head. Because of the pressure, they had to take a bit of my skull out. I've got a titanium plate there now. It's a big plate. It covers quite a big area of my head." She spent 8 months undergoing rehabilitation in Northwick Park Hospital in Harrow before going home on her daughter's 18th birthday. Her story features an online writing project, Who Are You Now?, launched by the charity Headway East London to mark Brain Injury Week.
A man has described his living conditions as a nightmare, following continuous fly tipping outside the block of flats where he lives. Tony Frappaolo, 40, who lives in Grampian House, Plevna Road, Edmonton Green, is furious about the amount of rubbish that is dumped outside his flat. Nappies, bin bags, and even bicycles have been dumped outside the flats, which are owned by London and Quadrant and are situated next to Edmonton Green Shopping Centre. Mr. Frappaolo told the Enfield Independent that the stench stops him using his balcony. He said, "I have been here since 2007, and there is rubbish out on the balcony every day. There have been beds, bins, nappies, and a few bicycles lately. The smell is just unbearable. It has become a nightmare place to live, and I cannot use my balcony because of the smell and horrible view it is creating for me." He said he did not know who was dumping the rubbish from the block of flats, which has more than 30 floors, but says it is difficult to tolerate. Mr. Frappaolo acknowledged that the rubbish is cleared every so often, but is calling for more frequent clean-ups. He said, "I cannot go on like this anymore. I have contacted the Housing Association, L&Q, but they have done nothing about this problem. I feel like I am being passed from pillar to post, and no one is taking responsibility." L&Q is yet to make a comment on the situation.
Expectant mums in Enfield are being urged to get in touch with maternity services as soon as their pregnancies are confirmed. The As Soon as You Are Pregnant campaign has been launched by Enfield Council in a bid to boost the take-up of maternity services in the borough. There are about 5,100 births in Enfield each year, an average of 14 a day. The council said a significant number of mothers in Enfield are late to book in for maternity services and that the problem is particularly prevalent in certain communities. Nika Kiza, Cabinet Member for Public Health and Sport, said there was strong evidence that early access to maternity services improves outcomes for women and their babies. Advice on diet, exercise, relationships and general care can help women maintain their health and that of their babies during this important time, she said. As pregnancies progress, regular blood tests and weight and blood pressure checkups can help to ensure that mothers and babies remain healthy. Maternity services can also monitor women who have conditions that can affect a pregnancy, such as diabetes, and helps them safely through childbirth.
We've reached the end of our programme for this week. Thank you for listening. So from the team of Jenny, Sonia, Alan and Ian on the controls, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.
Please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the cassette into the packet and return it to us as soon as possible. The Enfield Talking newspaper will be with you again in 1 week's time.